Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling one of the world's greatest, most enduring prehistoric puzzles, Stonehenge. For 5,000 years, this incredible circle of stone has stood on the Salisbury Plain, a silent monument to a people who, somehow, achieved the impossible. But how? And that really is the central question, isn't it? The one that's fascinated people for centuries. How on earth did a Stone Age culture, a culture with no written language, no wheel, not even metal tools, manage to build this? The sheer scale of it is it's staggering.
Let's just try to put this into perspective. The biggest stones out there, the ones called sarsens, they weigh around 25 tons each. That's like trying to move 4 adult elephants. And they didn't just move one, they moved dozens of them.
And get this wasn't some quick job. The construction of Stonehenge wasn't a single project. It was an epic undertaking that spanned at least 1,500 years. That's something like 60 generations of people, each one adding to and transforming this sacred place.
But for me, this is the most mind-blowing fact of all. The very first stones they brought here, the smaller ones we call bluestones, were hauled an incredibly 150 miles from their source in Wales. Just try to imagine that journey, over rugged land and across water, with nothing but sheer muscle, rope, and an unbreakable will.
So, to really get our heads around Stonehenge, we have to stop seeing it as just one single structure. It was an evolving sacred site, one that started with humble earth and wood, and over centuries was transformed into this incredible temple of stone.
The whole thing unfolded in these distinct, really ambitious phases. It all kicked off way back around 3100 BC, and not with stones, but with a huge circular ditch and bank. Then, for about 500 years, that was pretty much it. Then came the first stones, the bluestones from Wales. But only a century later, the most dramatic change of all, the giant sarsens were brought in to build that iconic ring that we all recognize today.
You know, that decision to bring in stone was the real turning point. It was a conscious choice to abandon timber and work with something permanent, something that would last forever. They weren't just building for themselves or their children, they were building for eternity.
And this is where their genius really shines. They weren't just stacking rocks. They were using sophisticated woodworking skills on multi-ton stone. They actually carved joints, kind of like ancient Legos, to lock the horizontal stones on top of the upright ones. It's that incredible level of craftsmanship that makes Stonehenge totally unique. Okay, so all of this skill, this incredible organization, it just begs the question, who were these people? Who were the actual monument makers behind the stones?
Well, thanks to modern DNA analysis, we actually know who started it all. The people who first dug that ditch were the descendants of early European farmers, people whose ancestors had journeyed all the way from what is now Turkey, bringing the revolutionary idea of farming to Britain. But just as the most ambitious part of the building was about to begin, the raising of those giant sarsens, a totally new group of people arrived from mainland Europe. We call them the Bell Beaker people because of these very distinctive bell-shaped pots they made. And their arrival, well, it changed everything. And I mean, it really changed everything. Over just a few hundred years, their DNA almost completely replaced the existing populations. We're talking a 90% genetic shift. But here's the amazing part. These newcomers didn't destroy Stonehenge. They embraced it. They adopted it, and they completed the most iconic phase of its construction.
So, we're getting a pretty good idea of the who and the how, but that just brings us to the biggest mystery of them all. Why? Why pour centuries of blood, sweat, and tears into this one spot on the plains?
Without any written records, we have to play detective and follow the archaeological clues. And right now, those clues point to 2 major theories, and they aren't necessarily at odds with each other. Was it a vast domain of the dead, or was it a place for the living, a center for healing?
All right, so theory number 1 is that Stonehenge was, from its very beginning, a place for the dead, a huge ceremonial cemetery.
And the evidence for this is pretty compelling. Human bones were placed there right from the start. For the next 500 years, it was a massive cremation cemetery. Archaeologists even think it was part of a bigger ritual landscape connected to a nearby settlement, the land of the living, which would make Stonehenge the domain of the dead.
But there's another powerful idea. What if people came to Stonehenge not to die, but because they were desperate to live? What if it was a prehistoric center for healing?
The evidence for this is literally written in the bones. A lot of the skeletons buried there show signs of terrible disease or injury. And get this, chemical analysis of their teeth proves that some of them traveled from as far away as the Mediterranean. Why? Well, the answer might be those magical bluestones. We now know they have this bizarre acoustic quality. If you strike them, they ring out like a bell. And in many ancient cultures, rocks that could sing were believed to hold incredible healing powers.
So, was it a cemetery, a healing center? Maybe it was both. We might never know for sure. But whatever its original purpose was, its power, its legacy, is absolutely undeniable.
I mean, just look at it today. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a protected monument, an absolute icon of Britain. But it's not just a museum piece. For thousands of people, from modern druids to pagans, it is still a living, breathing spiritual site.
And here's the really exciting part. The story isn't over. Not by a long shot. We are constantly finding new things. Modern science is unlocking secrets from the stones and the landscape around them that have been buried for thousands of years.
Take this, for example, a stunning discovery from just this year. For centuries, everyone just assumed the central altar stone came from Wales, like the bluestones. Well, new analysis suggests it came from northeast Scotland. That is a journey of over 430 miles. This one finding completely rewrites the map of ancient Britain. And that leaves us with this final, powerful thought. We're starting to realize Stonehenge probably wasn't built by a single isolated tribe. It seems to have been a huge, collaborative project that unified people from across the entire island. And maybe that's its greatest secret. Not how they moved the stones, but why they all came together to do it. It speaks to this incredible human capacity for cooperation. And it just makes you wonder, what other secrets about that ancient unity are still buried right beneath our feet, just waiting to be discovered?